September 24th, 2025, 11 a.m. In the heart of Bashkortostan, 870 miles from Ukraine's front lines, the silence is shattered. Sirens wail, alarms echo, and one of Russia's crown jewels, the Gazprom Neftekhim Salavat Petrochemical complex, is under fire. For the second time in a single week, Ukraine's security service unleashes long-range kamikaze drones, carving deep into Russia's industrial core. This isn't just a refinery, it's a $4 billion lifeline, a sprawling beast that churns out gasoline, diesel, kerosene, jet fuel, liquefied gases, plastics, and ammonia. 10% of Russia's petrochemical output flows from these pipelines, powering highways, aircraft, and battle tanks alike. To Moscow, Salivat stands as a fortress. To Kyiv, it's the perfect bullseye. 6 days before the September 24 strike, Salavat had already taken a hit. Ukraine's drones slipped past Russia's defenses and went straight for the refinery's ELOU AVT4 crude oil processing unit. For a facility this size, that's like hitting the main breaker switch in a power station. The ELOU AVT4 is the core distillation column, the system that cracks crude into useful products. Gasoline, kerosene, jet fuel, the very lifeblood of both civilian highways and military convoys. When the drones struck, explosions rolled through its pipelines and towers, sending smoke thick enough to blot the sun. Locals didn't need state TV to tell them something was wrong. The sky had already turned into the evening news. And here's the part Moscow hates: this wasn't a quick patch-up job. Distillation units aren't fixed with duct tape and a wrench. They require custom parts, specialist engineers, and months of downtime. Every day offline means less fuel at the pumps, fewer rubles in state coffers, and more strain on keeping tanks and trucks moving. Kyiv's playbook was simple. If one strike caused panic, a second would twist the knife. So when September 24 came around, Ukraine's security service sent the message again. You had 6 days, what did you fix? By hitting the same spot twice, Ukraine denied Russia the luxury of repairs and forced Moscow to confront the uncomfortable truth. Distance doesn't equal safety. Bashkortostan was supposed to be beyond reach, buffered by layers of air defenses and radar nets. But those systems can't be everywhere at once, and each successful strike maps another blind spot. Kyiv not only wants to damage pipes, it wants to rattle confidence. Engineers look over their shoulders, local officials scramble for statements, and Kremlin planners wonder how many more fortresses are really just targets waiting their turn. Salavat was never meant to be on the front line, but Ukraine dragged it there anyway. On September 24 at 11 a.m., Salavat's refinery erupted again. Twin detonations cracked through the industrial sprawl, followed by flames racing through part of the complex. A plume of thick black smoke clawed into the sky, so large it doubled as a weather forecast. For residents, it was the second time in a week they'd seen the skyline burn, and they knew instantly this wasn't some leaky pipe. Fire brigades roared in, spraying foam and water in desperate attempts to keep the flames from leaping to fuel tanks. Inside the complex, workers scrambled to shut valves and cut lines before the blaze set off a chain reaction. Refineries are temperamental beasts. Once fire starts feeding, it can spread faster than official press releases. Governor Radi Kabirov quickly hopped on Telegram blaming another terrorist drone attack and assuring everyone the situation was under control. It was the kind of line meant to calm nerves but delivered like a fire drill where half the building's already gone. Meanwhile, Ukrainian sources told a different story. They pointed to precision strikes designed not for showy explosions but for disabling key infrastructure. The kind of hits that stop output cold. Less theater, more sabotage. The imagery, flooding social media, made the governor's words look optimistic at best. Satellite shots and videos showed the massive smoke trail, confirming that whatever Moscow called controlled was still burning for the world to see. Industrial analysts noted that even minor fires at facilities like this can stall operations for weeks. Safety checks, inspections, and cautious restarts aren't optional. They're mandatory if you don't want to turn a refinery into a crater. Beyond the fire itself, The strike reverberated through supply lines. Salavat feeds a chunk of Russia's petrochemical flow, meaning its troubles ripple out to gas stations, factories, and military logistics. For Moscow, it's like finding out one of your secure ATMs is spitting out free cash. For Kyiv, it's proof that no matter how far back Russia pushes its war economy, a drone can still come knocking. The residents of Salavat didn't sign up to be frontline witnesses, but the war doesn't ask for volunteers. Now, those drones weren't exactly buzzing across the border for a quick photo op, they were flying marathon missions. To reach 1,400 kilometers inside Russia, Ukraine's SBU leaned on its longest-legged kamikaze platforms. Candidates include the UJ-22 Airborne, with a reach close to 1,000 kilometers, or the Beaver, a domestically built workhorse known to push beyond that mark while carrying warheads of about 20 kilos. And that payload may sound modest compared to a cruise missile, but placed on a refinery pipeline or distillation tower, it's like flicking a match into a gas can. The drones carried high explosive charges tuned to rupture storage tanks and processing units, the soft tissue of any refinery. Their flight profiles favored stealth over speed, often cruising at just 100 to 200 feet, using the folds of terrain to mask their approach. Think of them as low-flying lawnmowers with teeth, humming quietly until they find steel to bite. Guidance likely came from GPS and inertial systems, with satellite uplinks for mid-course corrections. That means even if a jammer tried to knock them off course, they'd still plod steadily toward the target. For Russia, the problem is structural. Its high-end defenses, S-400s and Panzer S-1s, are optimized to chase jets, cruise missiles, and hypersonic threats. Against small, radar-evading drones, they're overkill in theory and underperformers in practice. Each drone that gets through is another reminder that the billion-dollar umbrella doesn't always stop the drizzle. No casualties emerged from the Salavat strike, but the real damage is cumulative. It's part of a steady drumbeat of Ukrainian attacks stretching across Russia's refining sector. In the past few months, facilities in Ufa, Volgograd, and several other regions have taken hits, leaving 16 of Russia's 38 refineries partially crippled. It's not a bruise. It's nearly half the system nursing injuries. The numbers tell the story. Refining capacity has dropped by as much as 20%, a figure that translates directly into fewer barrels making it to market. Diesel exports have sunk to a 5-year low, a painful statistic for a country that leans heavily on diesel sales abroad. On the home front, some regions report fuel stations struggling to stockpile, forcing drivers to hunt for supplies. For ordinary Russians, the war isn't only on TV, it's showing up at the pump. Moscow's answer has been volume. Massive retaliatory barrages, like the 600 missiles and drones it hurled at Ukraine on September 20. It's a cycle of hit and reply, with pipelines, storage tanks, and refineries as the battleground. Kyiv chips away at Russia's fuel lifelines, while the Kremlin tries to bury Ukraine under sheer tonnage. The scoreboard isn't measured in body counts, but in barrels, and right now, Moscow is burning through both. The blast waves from Salavat don't end in Bashkortostan. They echo across Europe's energy map. Just days before the strike, the EU rolled out its newest sanctions package, zeroing in on Russian oil traders while advancing a phased natural gas ban. The timing couldn't be sharper. Every drone that tears into a Russian refinery doesn't just dent Moscow's fuel supply, it magnifies the squeeze already tightening around the Kremlin's finances. Markets notice. Fuel shortages inside Russia mean fewer exports abroad, which drives volatility in global prices. For Moscow, the double bind is brutal. Sanctions choke off legitimate sales, while Ukraine keeps poking holes in the infrastructure needed to keep the pumps running. For Europe, it's a high-stakes balancing act. Limit Russian energy without letting prices torch their own economies. In this sense, every Ukrainian drone strike is both a battlefield tactic and a geopolitical ripple, reminding traders, politicians, and energy ministers that the war's front line cuts through oil pipelines as much as trenches. What Ukraine spent on this mission could buy a decent city bus. What Moscow lost might pay for a fleet of them. With drones costing tens of thousands and damages ballooning into hundreds of millions, the math tells its own story. Salavat was draped in defenses. Radars scanning, electronic jammers buzzing, missile batteries primed. And yet, When it mattered, the drones slipped through like houseflies past an open window. 2 strikes in 6 days, a $4 billion refinery coughing black smoke. Moscow forced to admit once again that Ukraine can reach its industrial core. The Kremlin's war machine runs on fuel, and Ukraine keeps proving it knows exactly where to cut the lines. So what do you call this one? Salavat Scorch? Operation Crude Awakening? Drop your best codename in the comments.